folks, we are live at the INFOWARRIOR with Jason Bermas this December 13th, 2009, on the cusp of Christmas and a new year. If you were over at my Facebook, you know we are going to be talking about Climategate. We're going to be discussing the mysterious swirls in the sky. So much speculation out there. I'm going to put most of the speculation and wild-eyed ideas to rest. Personally, I think it's a mass hysteria program, but we'll get to that later. We're also going to be talking about Modern Warfare 2. This is Call of Duty. This is a game that I kind of grew up with. It started off me killing Nazis. And hey, who doesn't love to kill a good Nazi in a World War II first-person shooter? I dug it. I like to take sniper shots. I want to get crazy on people. But now it has turned into this dark psyops black operation program where you torture people and they do a false flag attack with a CIA operative. Now, a CIA operative has infiltrated this Russian Special Forces unit. And the Russian Special Forces unit decides, you know what? We're going to go into an airport and gun down civilians. And this isn't just the storyline of the actual game. You participate, first-person style, shooting down civilians at an airport waiting to get on a plane. It starts off, and we're going to play the video for PrisonPlanet.tv viewers, with a row of about 20 or 30 people waiting at the mandatory slave checkpoints and then just getting gunned down. And you go through the airport gunning down innocent civilians. And then I guess the joke is on the CIA operative, because at the end of the level, the Russian operative knows he's in the CIA, executes him, and it starts a hot war with Russia through a false flag attack. These are the new video games that our children are playing. That one made $550 million in 5 days. I want you to let that sink in for a moment. What that means is it is 4 to 5 times as popular as the biggest movies that Hollywood can produce. Okay, if a movie does 100 to 200 million in a weekend, that's massive. If they can clear that in a week, that's massive. They did $550 million in 5 days. So we're going to go into that big time at the top of the second hour. Actually, our board op, one of our new guys, Ryan, he writes for dailypwn.com. Anybody who's not a geek doesn't know what PWN means, but it's basically ownage with a geek twist. I don't know. I've never gotten into it. But he's going to come in. He's reviewed the game. He's played the game. There's even more than that. We're going to discuss that for about 20 or 30 minutes. We're also going to take your calls. But I want to start out the headlines with this leaked memorandum. Remember how Obama and the loving administration that he brought in was going to shut down Gitmo and get us out of the Middle East? But just a week and a half ago, he said 30,000 more troops, and then we'll start redacting. Well, guess what? Gitmo is going to be closing down, but it's going to be opening up in Illinois. That's right. They found a place that is willing to take these so-called, quote-unquote, terrorists and allow the U.S. military to have carte blanche on them. It's coming home. It's not just on a base in Cuba. It's not just at a rendition site overseas in Europe anymore. They're bringing it to Illinois. And this is a memorandum for the Secretary of Defense and the Attorney General directing certain actions with respect to acquisition and use of the Thompson Correctional Center by the authority vested in me by the Constitution and the laws of the United States. Yeah, what a joke. The Constitution and Bill of Rights is disgusted at these military facilities where people have zero rights. And remember, under the Patriot Acts 1, 2, and parts of 3, which passed, the Military Commissions Act, and much, much more horrid legislation that we have just let pass us by, you too, America, can be labeled an enemy combatant and go to one of these facilities, never get to talk to a lawyer, never have a trial, or if you do, maybe it's a military tribunal that just runs around in circles, a kangaroo court that no one ever hears about. Coming here to the Thompson Correctional Center in Illinois. This is huge news. We're going to go over this and a ton more when we get back. It's the InfoWarrior with Jason Bermas. Go check us out over at InfoWars.com and PrisonPlanet.tv.
We are the insurgents.
And we are back live. It's the InfoWarrior with Jason Bermas, 6 to 9 Central Time, Sundays. If you miss it, go get the podcast over at the InfoWarrior.com. or check us out live at prisonplanet.tv streaming. You're going to want to check us out live because I go to a lot of videos on this show because I think it's so important to point out what the news media is promoting, what their agenda is in all of this. And I haven't heard anybody, I got this off a Drudge, and it took me right to the article, anybody talking about Gitmo coming to the United States of America. Now, if it wasn't for InfoWars and Prison Planet, there's a good chance that Hardin, Montana would have started to be this type of a facility where they just bring in quote-unquote enemy combatants or they bring in foreign troops to train there by a privatized security force run by a multiple felon. This guy, Michael Hardin, had numerous aliases, 14 felony convictions, and they were more than willing to give this prison over to a privatized security force posing as police officers in the light that there would be better economic progress in the area. And as this country becomes more and more destitute, and they try to impose more and more control, more and more taxes on your everyday life, carbon dioxide, folks, you'll be an eco-terrorist in the Illinois Thompson Correctional Center before you know it. They will expand. I promise you, this is not just about moving a bunch of Muslims from Cuba, the Middle East, and Europe to the United States of America. It's about militarizing correctional facilities and building the prison planet. That's why we have prisonplanet.com and prisonplanet.tv, because that is the reality of the situation. Let me continue with this document. The Secretary of Defense shall reallocate detainees currently held at the Guantanamo detention facility to the TCC as expeditiously as possible, to the extent permitted by laws related to Guantanamo detainees and consistent with the findings in and interagency review established by Executive Order 1349-2 on January 22nd, 2009. The Attorney General shall, as expeditiously as possible, acquire and activate the TCC as a United States penitentiary, which the Attorney General has determined would alleviate the Bureau of Prisons' shortage of maximum security cell space and could be used for other appropriate purposes. They are bringing torture facilities, open torture facilities, into the United States. If you live near this Thompson Correctional Center, you better get up in arms. You better start calling the mayor. You better start talking to the sheriff. And if you live anywhere in that state, call the governor, for Christ's sakes. This is over the top, out of control, off the charts. When he said he wanted to close Guantanamo Bay, did you think that meant bring a torture facility to the United States so that U.S. citizens could be more easily put into renditions and torture facilities? Surely if you voted for him, you didn't believe that. But then again, you probably believed he was going to end the wars in the Middle East like he said he was going to. You probably believed he wasn't an establishment candidate. You probably believed that after something like Climategate came out, he wouldn't go to Copenhagen to try to sign your life away to a world government and a carbon tax. But the man continues to dance to the strings of the marionette pulling them on a daily basis. And yes, he speaks better than our last president. He's more upfront. He hides his true intentions through semantics and wordplay. He's good at that. They picked a very smart, well-spoken lawyer who is still really trying to figure out his own position in this whole mess. Okay? It's not a coincidence that Barack Obama is caught reading A Post-American World by Fareed Zakaria, who was recruited by Bilderberg. This newsman, who was a local Washington, D.C. Fox affiliate commentator, who in the last 8 years has made his way into like the forefront of CNN, huge best-selling New York Times promoted author, Bilderberg group member, and last week I'm watching CNN, and they admit that this guy, Fareed Zakaria, the guy who wrote A Post-American World, sat down and had lunch with Obama just before his West Point speech, where he announced without any opposition, not before the House, not before the Senate, that he would send 30,000 more of our young men and women to possibly die for corporate and globalist interests. And then he got up there and he had the nerve, and I covered this when I hosted Alex's show,
had the nerve to say the United States has never gone to war for a country's resources or imperialism. And then he played up the 9/11 mantra. He knows damn well that 9/11 was an international intelligence operation orchestrated by the very global elite that put him into office. He knows damn well that's what happened. He knows damn well that we're there for imperialist purposes, that this ain't no game, that Al-Qaeda is a joke, okay? A joke. It's a ha-ha funny. And, you know, even Michael Moore had to eat a little bit of humble pie on the Larry King show and say, look, according to the CIA's own numbers, there's still less than 100 Al-Qaeda out there. There's no Al-Qaeda in Iraq. He's like, we haven't gotten bin Laden in Afghanistan. He made the point that Mussolini and Hitler were both taken out in a shorter period of time than the boogeyman bin Laden. Isn't that a little weird, folks? You know, we can have these massive world wars